When we talk of English poetry, you may have noticed that we bring poetry from different parts of the world. English poetry is English poetry because it is written in the English language, but it is not British poetry. So today let's move across to a continent, a country by itself, Australia. Most of you must be aware that Australia is so different when we think of a continent like Asia. The vast expanses with very little habitation. And well then, Australian poetry is in the English language. Since I'm going to be reading it, I'm sure you will not find the Australian accent, which is so different from the accent that you and me are used to. So let's have our first poem in this series from Australia. Robin Klein was born in 1936, an Australian poet, but also a short story writer. Interestingly, she wrote her first story as early as the age of 16. Unfortunately, after a serious illness, she has been in a nursing home since 2005 and has not been able to do much writing after that. But some of her novels have won many awards, including Hating Alison Ashley. Another, Came Back to Show You I Could Fly. The poem today is Amanda, and as we go along, you will see how interestingly she can write about even a very simple topic. Amanda is a poem, a kind of a conversation between a mother and a daughter. Is it a conversation, you may well ask, but let me go on with the poem. I won't read the entire poem right at the beginning. Don't bite your nails, Amanda. Don't hunch your shoulders, Amanda. Stop that slouching and sit up straight, Amanda. Obviously, it's the parent, the mother, I imagine, who is giving instructions to her daughter. All of you who are listening, I'm sure, will remember your mothers and what kinds of do's and don'ts they laid down for you. And what did you do? Let me ask you what you did before I tell you what Amanda does. There's a languid emerald sea where the sole inhabitant is me, a mermaid drifting blissfully. Isn't that beautiful? As her mother is telling her what to do and what not to do, here is Amanda going away into a beautiful, peaceful emerald sea. And who is there? She says, I am the sole inhabitant. But the mother continues, did you finish your homework, Amanda? Did you tidy your room, Amanda? I thought I told you to clean your shoes, Amanda. I won't explain that because all of us have experienced it. But maybe not all of us have been as imaginative as Amanda. So what does Amanda imagine? I am an orphan roaming the street. I pattern soft dust with my hushed bare feet. The silence is golden. The freedom is sweet. Can you imagine how much Amanda feels affected by her mother's nagging that she'd rather be an orphan? And sure, she doesn't really mean it. Probably it's very momentary. But she wants to be all alone, away from this nagging parent. But does the mother realize that? Don't eat the chocolate, Amanda. Remember your acne, Amanda. Will you please look at me when I'm speaking to you, Amanda? And what does Amanda imagine now? I am Rapunzel, I have not a care. Life in a tower is tranquil and rare. I'll certainly never let down my bright hair. Is there any one of you who has not heard, not read, probably not seen Rapunzel in a movie, in a book? heard somebody tell you the story? Remember the witch? Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair. And if the hair comes down, then the witch can climb up into that tower. So Amanda has decided never to let down her hair because she does not want to have any sort of contact with the rest of the world, and certainly not with this nagging parent. And how does the poem end? I think very ironically. Stop that sulking at once, Amanda. You're always so moody, Amanda. Anyone would think that I nagged at you, Amanda. The poor mom doesn't even realize that she's nagging her daughter, because I think this poem is all about how parents feel that they know exactly what is good for their child. I'm sure they do, but how does the child react? There's no indication of how old the mother is, of how old the child is. But I have a granddaughter who is 15, and she keeps telling her mom, I'm not Amanda, so please don't become Amanda's mom. So I imagine this kid is probably 10, 12, 15 when you begin to realize that you don't like to be nagged. Wasn't that an interesting poem? I can't think of a poem and not think about figures of speech. You would have noticed, either while listening to me or whether reading poems, that there are always figures of speech. Some have more, some have less. Some have the very common ones, which by now I imagine you regular listeners know all about. So I'm just going to list them for you. For example, alliteration, which is the repetition of the same sound. Stop that sulking at once. You do have also metaphor. Metaphor, as you know, is a little different from simile, because we do not have in a metaphor as, like, etc. Would you like to look at the poem and find out what the metaphors are? Let me talk about something which probably we have not seen too often, and that is repetition. Repetition is done for emphasis. Look at the word Amanda, how many times it is used in this poem. I also want you to stop for a moment and see the difference. It's not really a figure of speech, but it brings to us the mood, the mode, the tone of the poem. There is one person who is speaking, the mother. I keep calling her the mother, and I sometimes wonder, why can't it be the father? And then I tell myself, it's usually the mother who lays down these rules of behavior for children. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's the way I'm looking at it. So the mother speaks, but the daughter does not speak. The daughter is lost in her world of imagination. So you have the repetition, as I mentioned. You also have allusion. I don't want you to confuse it with illusion, but allusion, which is spelled with an A. That means referring to things outside the poem. Remember, right at the beginning of the poem, we had the mermaid in the sea, right? Which is ever so many fairy tales have that reference. And then you have Rapunzel, where I already talked about her lovely golden hair. There is a figure of speech which is not very common, but which Robin Klein is using here, and that is anaphora. Anaphora is words being repeated at the beginning of successive lines. Let me say that. Like we have rhyme, which is the last word of each line. Here, it is the first word of each line. So if you go back and look at your poem, did, right? Did you finish your homework? Did you tidy? Or even at the beginning, don't bite your nails, don't hunch your shoulders, etc. Maybe one more let me talk about, and that is the transferred epithet, where a quality which we really associate with someone else. For example, when she talks about hushed feet. Can the feet be hushed? Ask yourself. That is a transferred epithet. Also, languid sea. And so it goes on. Read the poem again and enjoy it. The poem is about a mother and her daughter. Some of you might remember, we did another mother poem, remember? By Kamla Das, My Mother at 66. And now, one more poem about a mother-daughter. Many more to come, I'm sure. So maybe you'd like to read other mother poems. Maybe you'd like to read poems about mother and daughter. I'm leaving it to you without giving you a list of such poems. Let's see how you wake up to this challenge and look at more poems on mother. And why not fathers too?